I want to welcome you to today's session. It is Sage Live Intelligence Reporting Cloud. Create an expense statement using the online report designer in Sage Live Intelligence Reporting Cloud. I'm David O'Brien. I am the Intelligence Solutions Specialist, and today we're going to be working with the online report designer in Sage Live Intelligence Reporting. I'm going to show you how you can pretty much pick and choose specific accounts from your general ledger to create a rolling expense statement for easier and more efficient analysis of your data. So let's just get started. Today's webcast is being recorded and it will be provided to you via email. All participants are muted. Any questions you may have, just type them in the WebEx Q&A control panel or email them to me at david.aco-bryan@sage.com. Now for our agenda, we're going to go ahead and, of course, we will create a brand new report. We're not going to be working with one of the existing ones. We're going to create a brand new report. And from there, we're going to, of course, put in our nice little logos, get in the header, and we're going to work with columns and rows. We're going to put in some columns and some rows in there, of course. And once we've got the rows, we're going to start adding calculations and headers for those rows to pretty much pick and choose our specific expense categories. Of course, once we're done with that, we're going to run that report. Once the report has been run out, you'll see exactly what the expense statement can look like. And you're not limited to just that. There's a lot more you can do with it. You can tailor it to your own needs. But this is just a very simple and brief webcast to show you just how you can create that. And finally, there's going to be additional learning in social media at the final slides. Those of you that are not aware, of course, you'll take a look at that and you'll see exactly what you can do with it. So let's just go ahead and get started. It's Sage Live Intelligence Reporting. Here we go. So here we are, of course, this is Sage Live. If we want to create a brand new report, we can definitely click on My Reports, go to Financial, and choose to create a report. There's that, or we can just go back home and choose Create Financial Report. And that's what we're going to do right now. I'm just going to go ahead and create one. I'm going to call it Expense Statement. I just call that Expense Statement. For now, we're just going to call it expense statement, and once that's done, I'm just going to click OK. And this, of course, is going to bring us to the online report designer, which I like to call the skeleton or the anatomy of the financial statement. So once we're in here, of course, all of these sections in the the online report designer, once you click on each one, you'll see the properties of all the different sections, the company logo here, we've got the expense statement here, that's the report title, the columns, of course, and the rows. So let's just start by adding a nice little logo. I'm just going to click on company logo, and to the right-hand side, let's just click Choose Logo. There we go. And I do have Sage here. I do have a bunch of Sage icons. So I'm just going to choose Sage. This is my logo here, and I'll click Open. There we go. So I clicked Open there, and we do have a logo. That's step one. Next, if we click on Expense Statement, just go to the right-hand side. Of course, that's the title. It's Expense Statement. If you want, you can call it Yearly Expense Statement, or you can change it to whatever you want. Then let's jump to the columns here. So what I want to do with my columns in this case, just in case you were wondering, with the columns, of course, we can choose Quick Add columns, or we can choose from specific columns that have been predefined by the Sage Intelligence team, or earlier saved by you if you created any quick adds. Or next, you can add a set of columns like this. You can choose to add a calculation, add one column, add a space, or you can choose to remove all. So what I'm going to do really simply, I'm just going to add one column here. And you see, notice that new column that we're looking at. I'm just going to go to the right-hand side for the column heading, and I'm just going to call it, let's call that yearly total, okay? So I've got the yearly total. That's what I want. It's the yearly total. It's going to be my expense statement. The column type, I'm just going to leave it at an amount. The amount type, I'm just going to set that to actual year-to-date. I want that to be a year-to-date, essentially, for my entire year. So the year, I'm just going to leave it here. It's going to be at year at, and that essentially is pulling from the system variables for the specific year that we're working with in the data load, and I'll show you that in a second. And since it's the actual year to date, I want the quarter 4. It's just going to be the quarter year to date for quarter 4, and I'm just going to click OK. In case you're wondering that at year at, let me show you the data load really quickly. To the right-hand side, just above that Run button, I'm just going to click on it. This is the data loaded. It is showing me that North American Consulting has been loaded for the years 2016 and 2015. Those are the years that contain information. So I'm just going to close out of this. So I'm done with that. I just have a yearly total. That's all I wanted to work with for now. It's just going to give me one column. So we're going to jump into our rows now. And for the rows, this is where it gets really interesting. It's from here that we can pick and choose our specific rows, whichever rows we want to work with. So I'm just going to click Rows, and to the right-hand side, I'm not going to say Quick Add, but if we do choose Quick Add, of course, you're going to pretty much pick and choose, again, rows that have been created by the Sage Intelligence team, or earlier saved by you if you've created some rows in the past. You can add a calculation, you can add one row, you can add a space, you can remove all, you can add a set of rows. In this case, since I want more control, I'm just going to go ahead and choose to add a set of rows. And it's from here that we can pick and choose our specific rows that we want to throw in there. So just bear with me. Here we go. Really quickly, we can search those specific rows or general ledger accounts by description. You can search by account type. You can search by the account class. Once you jump into the account class, this pretty much shows you all the different account classes that we have available, and you can search for it. So right now, if I just come in here, if I just came into the account type and I just typed in, let's say, if I typed in equity, watch what happens. Just by typing it in, it selects it, gives you that preview. So I'm just going to go back here into the accounts, and what I want to do is I just want to pick some specific accounts which are related to expenses in this company, in my company. Some of you, of course, your general ledger accounts are completely different from mine, but this should give you an idea on how you can search for them. So watch what I can do here. For the description, I can just type in purchase. These are some of the accounts that I want to pull up here. So I do have some purchase of goods here. That's it, purchase of goods. In my company, I'm considering that an expense account. So that's one of them. Now, again, if I want, I can search for more. I do believe I have one called taxes. There we go. I do have taxes here, so I'm just going to throw taxes also in there. Next, let's see. I do have some more accounts. I have sales in use. Now, that's a bit different. It is an expense account. Let's see. Sales. I've got sales in use taxes payable. There we go. Let's go get another one. Let's go get, I believe, check outstanding. We have some checks outstanding here. It's an asset, but in this specific company, don't worry, it is an expense account. Don't worry about it. Then next, we have accounts payables that came back. Those are also expenses, very doubtful. So I'm just going to throw that in also, our accounts payables in there. So once I click in there we go. I have these four, and now I have these five, and now we can start grouping them. We can definitely go ahead and group them. So I can just, if we want to group them, we can put some headers in there, and eventually those headers we're going to give them total. So I could just come in here and I'm just going to say, I'm just going to type in text. I'm going to click on text. Notice how I have a brand new text box here, and we can go ahead and type in a name. So here we can go ahead for a couple. We can just go ahead and say, let's call this purchase expense. And now that we have this, we can definitely move this like this. See, just putting this, I'm just going to drop this right here. So those are purchase expenses. That's a header, but eventually we will turn that to a calculated field. We're going to also have some tax expenses. So I'm just going to click text again. I keep saying type. And here I'm just going to call this tax expense. And I'm just going to drag that and put it underneath my two taxes. Now, I hope you see where I'm going here. So purchase expense essentially is giving me my purchase of goods. My tax expense is giving me this up here. And of course, you can get the last one here. I can just type in text, and I can just call this checking expense. There we go. So I got the checking expense. So we've got those three different categories now. So all we need to do in this case, I just simply click OK, and here we go. That's what we're looking at right now. So again, let's make it a bit more easy on the eye. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw in some spaces really quickly. So to the right-hand side, I'm just going to click Add a Space, and the space has been added here. Notice how the space is down at the bottom, and I can move that. There we go. So I'm just grouping them now. So let's just go ahead and put in some more spaces in there. 1, 2 spaces have been added. Let's go and get the tax expense. And I believe we do have our checking expense. So that looks good. So now that we have all this information in there, well, really won't even need this. So next thing is, notice how these fields, the purchase expense, this is just a header. If I click on it to the right-hand side, notice how it's a row header, and the row type is just text. But what we want this to be a calculation so we can start grouping up this information. So what we can do, I can come in here and I can say, I can change this from row type to a calculation. And for the calculation, I'm simply just going to click in here. And here it comes. What do I want that calculation to be? I just want it to be just the purchase of goods. Because what I will do when I'm done is I'm just going to hide those other accounts, the accounts that make up the specific totals. So all we're looking at just the expenses. So I've got purchase of goods, and I will click OK. Let's do the same with the tax expense here. To the right-hand side, it's not text. This is a calculation. And what is the calculation? It's just your taxes plus your sales use and taxes payable. I'm just going to click OK. Next, let's get the checking expense here. Same thing, checking expense. Let's just go to calculation. And we're going to set that to checks outstanding plus your accounts payable, and I will click OK. Now, these have now become calculated fields. Next, of course, we have all this information in here. what we want to do is to make it really nice and simple again, we can leave it at this. This is fine. We can leave it and get the totals in there, or you can choose to hide them. Before I choose to hide them, though, I'm just going to go to the right, and let's just set our filter really quickly by clicking this little report filters here. And the company that we're working with is North American Consulting. The year that we want to work with is 2016. And the current period, let's just go throw that to period 12. Looks good. Once we're done now, I'm just going to take you back here. A couple of things. The rows that we have created can be saved, okay? We can definitely save this row, and I would advise that. So in future, if we want to work with another expense statement at any point in time, we can choose that from one of the quick adds. So I'm just going to click here, and to the right-hand side, I'm going to say quick add rows. And what we want to do is save current rows as quick adds, and I'm just going to call this expense rows. Let's leave it at that. Expense rows, really simple. I'll click OK. So we now have a brand new row here called expense rows that we can choose from at any time in future. So I'm just going to close this. We've got the yearly total column. We've got our expenses. So now all we need to do is I can click to save this report. I just click to save it. Once we save the report, I'm just going to run it so you can take a look and see exactly what it looks like. We've chosen our parameters from the filters, all that information, and there we have it. North American Consulting, the logo is Sage. It is expense statement. This is our yearly total right here. That's your purchase expense. This is your tax expense right here, and this is your checking expense. Now, the reason we did this, the reason I decided to go ahead and get the totals there. Now, notice there sometimes you might not want to see the detailed information, and if ever you want to view just the totals, it's really simple. We can either go back or we can choose to edit one more time by clicking that edit button up top there. So if we want now, we can just choose a purchase of goods to the right-hand side. Let's just go ahead and hide this row. We're going to do the same thing with the taxes, the sales and taxes payable, and checks outstanding. Let's just go ahead and get the accounts payable also. And I'm just going to click OK with that. Now that those, of course, those rows are hidden, notice how they are grayed out. Then we can go ahead and run this one more time. And when we run this report now, take a look at it now. This is our expense statement, purchase expense, tax expense, and checking expense. And if ever you do want the totals, you want to know what your total expenses were for that year, we're just going to go back one more time. Let's edit it. Why don't we just go ahead and throw in one more total field in there? So I'm just going to add that space one more time, and I'm going to add a row. Or we can just choose to add a calculation, whichever one you want. So the new calculation, it's just going to be your, let's see, it's going to be your purchase expense right there, plus the tax expense, plus your checking expense. We just group them up. I'm just going to click OK. That's it. It's called a new calculated row. So all the way to the right, let's just go ahead and call this total expenses. So we've got the total expenses now, and that's it. We're not going to hide that row, of course. I'm just going to click OK. Let's go ahead and run it and see what the final result is. And this is our expense statement for the entire year. We've got our purchase expense, tax expense, and checking expense, and we are good to go. This is essentially how it works. That's how you can create it. Like I said, it's of course it's going to be different in your company, the way you group your expenses, which accounts you deem expenses and liabilities in your assets. So that's all up to you when you're working. But this essentially was a very brief demo showing you how you can definitely go into your online report designer and design an expense statement, pulling just specific accounts, the accounts that you want to tailor to your needs. And that's pretty much it. So again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. It's david.acco-brian@sage.com. So just finishing up there, for those of you that are familiar, to view other videos, of course, in this series, just go to youtube.com/Sage Intelligence, and also connect with us at sageintelligence.com and sageintelligencecommunity.com. If you'd like to brush up on your Excel skills, please check out our online courses at sageintelligenceacademy.com. And of course, we love feedback, so if you found this webcast useful, please like it and share it on your social media channels. And once more, thanks for choosing Sage Software.